spoke to the world regarding the events taking place in Ukraine and the economic fallout being blamed on it. Putin said Moscow offered the Ukrainian authorities not to engage in hostilities if they withdrew troops from the Donbas, but they did not want to. He went on to say the special military operation is going well, according to plan. He made an interesting remark when he said if Russian troops acted only on the territory of the republics of Donbas, this would not lead to peace in Ukraine and would not eliminate the threat to Russia. That was why a much larger area of Ukraine is involved. He pointed out that Western patrons are pushing Kiev to continue the bloodshed by supplying weapons, intelligence, and sending mercenaries. So he continued on. We talked about this before, exactly how this is all playing out. The special military operation part of that, Russian National Guard troops secure hydroelectric power plant in Kherson region. Russian National Guard troops end up in hydroelectric.
You need something, huh? All right, I'll get back to work.
And basically, not much was going on. The press was there. They had been surrendered by the Ukrainian side without a fight. That's right. So when you take a look at this video clip, you can see it flying over. Green corridor for the evacuees have been established in the territory of HVP. So all this is going on. Then you see some other things. Putin swore out a warrant for the arrest and execution of Soros over a decade ago. Remember, he quit the WEF, Putin did, in roughly 2012. He has refused the world central banking system for at least a decade. He called out the leaders of America as Satanists prior to Trump's victory in 2016. He's now kicked the Rothschilds out of his country. Isn't any wonder why the globalists hate this guy?
Never hit the random.
Interesting. He was pointing out the Satanists. We've seen that before where he pointed them out. And in that video clip, to me, the fifth column, those that he's talking about that would give up their very mother for power, reminds me of some of the things that we hear out of Hollywood with the conspiracy stuff that goes out, where they say you actually, to belong to Satan, you actually have to give up a family member in order to receive the money and power and the prestige that they give you. Republican U.S. Senator using his verified account to call for censorship on a free speech platform promoting debunked lie to advance his attack. So you got all of these others jumping in. Rick Scott, no company should be broadcasting Russia's state propaganda. State-backed propaganda. Putin and his thugs are violating the sovereignty of a free nation and committing a blatant act of war against Ukraine. So if I go to 456 on this video, I wanted to continue to hear the second part, in my opinion, the second part of this interview with Laura Logan. Just amazing.
I wanted to bring up the fact that President Zelensky is Jewish, and I don't know exactly how this factors in, but there's some very interesting points in what you're saying, and looking at this, you can think it's political theatrics. You made a very good point at the beginning that you think that Putin is in control, and I actually want to play something that Jen Psaki said, because it seems that the White House is actually echoing that sentiment. Watch this.
Well, the end game is really a question for President Putin. We have completely crushed his economy. We have provided military assistance, humanitarian assistance to the Ukrainians, enabling them to fight back for far longer than the Russian leadership anticipated.
Need a gift for your man this holiday? Meet the $60 Japanese knife the internet is calling a samurai sword for your kid.
Unwatchable
he has to determine what the path forward looks like for him. Thanks, everyone.
He's determining what this looks like, and I think that's a lot of what you said, Laura. I'd love to get your thoughts on that, what you just watched.
What troubles me about the moment that we're in is that we have such a selective and a narrow reading of history. President Zelensky may be Jewish, but he's not the only one in this who suffered during the Second World War. His ancestors suffered, right? And we look at Putin. How many relatives did he lose in the siege of St. Petersburg? People don't know their history. They don't know what made Vladimir Putin. And I'm not defending him. I don't need to defend Vladimir Putin. My job as a journalist is to try to understand what is the truth here. I don't like being lied to. And we're being lied to on an epic scale.
Oh, yeah.
When we're told your only choices, you have to be 100% with Zelensky, who's a puppet, who you can find on the internet in black stilettos and leather pants, shirtless, doing a spoof Dancing with the Stars kind of entertainment video. That's a mark of a Ukrainian group that does this kind of satanic, occult type of music video. We are fighting the same is about Russia and Ukraine. It's just a bare-faced lie. If Putin has been warning for 15 years that he is not going to stand by while the globalists take over the world, build bioweapons facilities or whatever else they're doing in Ukraine, Ukrainian oligarchs. Ukraine has been a center of money laundering for, many of the leaders in this country. For how long? Billions of US dollars have been laundered through Ukraine, and we say nothing about it. These are our tax dollars. I mean, before the impeachment trial, had you ever heard of anyone in the United States, us bringing in foreign governments to the White House for anti-corruption training? Does nobody question these things? Why do we not question it? We have an idiot like Lieutenant Colonel Vindman who goes in the impeachment trial and sits there as a lieutenant colonel. He didn't even make colonel. And he's telling the President of the United States what his policy should be. You have a traitor in the form of Maria Yovanovitch, who was Obama's ambassador. And then people object when the woman isn't even fired. She's given a cushy job for life at Georgetown University at the expense of the U.S. taxpayer. And we're told that the President of the United States cannot say to his foreign counterparts, that we want you to look into something, but you're going to withhold as much aid as he wants to. There's so much hypocrisy and dishonesty here, and Ukraine is in the center of it all. Go back to Russian collusion. Go to Alexander Tolpa. Go to Eric Karsala, the whistleblower, when he wrote the admission, who wasn't really a whistleblower, and all those corrupt people in the deep state. And you know what? The deep state isn't a theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's an actual deep state. Look up the SES, the Senior Executive Service, because when that bureaucracy
Really?
in the United States of America, pulling the strings behind the scenes, and these are the people that keep lying to us.
Absolutely. And pardon me, we've got a live chat where we're streaming on Getter, for example, and I'm watching it as you're talking. People are talking about how you're journalism bombs, and you're a real journalist, and I know that, having worked alongside you for many, many years at CBS and many other places. And they really want to hear the truth, but you're dropping the truth off. Now, of course, we've got to get a break right now. We'd love to have you back in the days ahead. We love having you on. Lara Logan, thanks for joining us on Real American Sports.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, we'll certainly have her back.
Man, Lara Logan, I would love to have her on this show for sure and just let her talk away. Instead of cutting her off, saying we're going to go to a break and all that. Just phenomenal. Watching this, I tell you, it was interesting when she was talking. It almost seemed like they were trying to cut her off several times, and they just could never get her to stop. Intel Slava showed us this. The denazification continues and very successfully. The militant Bandera Dementor from the National Battalion Revenge, formed by the accomplices of the Ukrainian homosexual politician Oleg Lyashko, has been eliminated. There he is, for all to see. Now, for other ways of looking at this and hearing it out, and how this has been playing out, would be what Captain Kyle Patriots put out Carrie Cassidy in an interview with Kim Godwin. Here's a good description of the White House and Trump doing one thing for the public and talking to the Q followers at the same time, and why. Carrie has been in this game longer than a lot of the following has been alive. She knows what she's talking about. I've followed her for a long time. It's from Captain Kyle Patriots. I don't agree with on some things, but that's okay. She's a bloodhound and has been on the right track her whole career.
But it's coming from NATO. And my understanding, look, when we talk, just to clarify terms, NATO and the ostensible people that are part of NATO, that is America, that is, again, the deep state. Okay, so it's not the Trump team that's motivating NATO to do what they're doing right now. It's actually
Trump's last speech, I think, I don't know if it was his last one, but a very recent one.
I know, but see, that's where we have to, and we both have the same issues, but perhaps for different reasons. Right. So my understanding, again, with Trump's speeches, which could drive anyone crazy, okay, is...
This groundbreaking teeth cleaner is disrupting the dental industry. This brand new teeth cleaning invention is taking over the...
If you want to believe that he's one of us, let's say, and he's part of, the White Hats and all of this, then you're going to be hard-pressed to find evidence of that White Hats, like I said, are still undercover, and they constantly do things to basically throw off the opposition, in theory. All right. So Trump, even in backing the backs, had to do this, and there's a certain amount of subterfuge in the way he acts, in his body language. I don't know, if you follow Q and you understand the signaling going on, but he is not talking on a surface, superficial level. He's actually trying to talk. It's kind of like double speak, okay? On the one hand, he's signaling to us in the audience that he's one of us. On the other hand, he's trying to stay in there with, and this, I don't agree with this, but this is how they operate, in there with the Rhino, what we call the Rhino Republicans, and not anger the Democrats too terribly much type of thing, so that he maintains, I know the way they think, I know what their rationale is, and what they say is, the reason he's doing this is because he doesn't want to split the country. They don't want civil war. What they want is to unify the country so that we can operate as a unified country, obviously, and fight our enemies that are from on the outside, okay? Whether it be invading China or invasion from wherever. Putin is working with Trump. There's no doubt whatsoever, okay? So this is, when you talk to the White Hats, I'm talking the deeper White Hats, okay? That's what they will tell you. Now, you might disagree with that, but I'm telling you that's what they say, and I believe that's correct, okay? So Putin and what he's doing in Ukraine is working perfectly hand in hand with the agenda of the White Hats, which is to expose the deep state in everything that is done. Okay, so they are also, in a sense, goading the deep state side to expose themselves more and more and more and more, so that when kind of the axe comes down, or whatever you want to call it, they are exposed and they will be out in the cold, and the people will wake up, because without the people, both of these sides are actually useless. They can't operate without us, okay? So it doesn't matter that I don't agree with a lot of the people out there, okay, that are deceived and believe in the White Hat, believe in the, what do you want to call them, the deep state, cabal, etc. They believe in that agenda. They believe that Putin's the bad guy. He's being painted as the bad guy in the press, so-and-so. And he's going in and invading the country for no reason whatsoever, except that, NATO has put not only bioweapons labs, and 30 of them there, but on top of it, had tried to make a deal with Zelensky so they could bring in the missiles. And bringing those missiles in a crisis type of scenario where he's perfectly in his rights to object, okay? And Zelensky, I think we can agree on this, is definitely a pawn of the deep state.
Yep.
Okay?
I'll agree with you on that.
So, as far as I can tell, again, and I don't want to rain on your parade here, but I want to clarify things. That's really what I'm trying to do here. A lot of times when you and I have talked, and we're actually on the same page, okay? We actually see the same events. We even see them from a similar point of view. You may have your details that you know. I have mine that I know, but they lead us to the same place, okay? So, but the place that we seem to diverge is in our point of view of the White House.
Very good how trying to piece this all together in our mind. What is President Trump up to when he speaks, right? There's double speak. She's right. When he's giving speeches, there's points that he says that speak to us. We understand it as those, following the intel information that comes through at the letter 17. And then there's those, the normies that don't want to hear about 17 or intel or quote-unquote conspiracy theories, those that belong to kind of the Rhino group or believe everything that they hear from, every single Republican and all the mainstream media is, stating that everything about Putin and what have you. and even kill. It's just a strange thing to try to piece together in our minds. It sure is clear. I mean, they invited Zelensky over, they being the politicians of America, and this is what they had to say. I think it's important to see this.
Mr. President, it is my honor to present to you the Congress of the United States, which has great respect and admiration and appreciation for your courageous leadership. Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor
There's the devil's daughter herself,
the President
Nancy
of
Pelosi.
Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. Slava Ukraina.
What the?
Standing ovation for an actor.
My colleagues, Slava Ukraina. Slava Ukraina.
They have lost their mind. So you look at I don't know if you saw his shirt, but if you look here, let me see if I can zoom in without it disappearing. Oh, it'll disappear. No, we'll bring it over. You see that on his chest there? That would be this Iron Cross, right? Was a military decoration in the Kingdom of Prussia and later in the German Empire 1871 to 1918 and Nazi Germany 1933 to 1945. He's wearing it on his shirt proudly. You can see it. And it makes you wonder why would he even wear something like that? Somebody even pointed out in the news brief from Fox the other day he was wearing it. They cut away from him when they came back to him speaking. Somehow they
Boy.
Hello, Patriots. Today is Thursday, March 10th, 2022. This is Restored Republic via GCR update for Judy Warrington. She says, trust the plan. Prepare for total economic collapse. This is not a drill. What it feels like, it would take a miracle to change the world.
You've got to be kidding me.
Consider being the miracle. Judy notes another day of having to choose which dramatic story to headline, so I just listed them all. With the Chernobyl nuclear plant recently cut off from their power supply, the cooling of stored fuel rods were now at risk of leaking radiation at any time. Russian forces discovered over 30 U.S.-owned, CIA-run bioweapons labs in the Ukraine. Oh. Putin declared we're rescuing victims. On Friday, March 11th, when Russia disconnected from the SWIFT system and RV'd their currency to gold back, the petrodollar will go down and likely stimulate a major market crash by Monday, March 14th. A worldwide blackout was part of the U.S. Space Force trump card. It should be a changeover to Tesla-free energy to provide power for the emergency broadcast system. The blackout would be followed by 10 days of disclosure, 3 8-hour movies, running 24/7 for 10 days in many languages. Iran, Israel, possibly direct missile attacks by Iran on Israel in the coming hours. China and Taiwan have reached a secret agreement to work together to reunify Taiwan and China. Almost 1 billion barrels of oil and gas is what's consumed in the U.S. every day, most of which was purchased from Russia, which was now sanctioned. Add to the mix, Russia was requiring that all purchases of Russian goods be made with Russian rubles, and those rubles would be gold-backed as of Friday, March 11th. The military government in Myanmar has seized the bank accounts of George Soros, Open Society Foundations. 3 Ukrainian officials have sworn under oath that Ukraine interfered against Trump, and that is a Gateway Pundit article. Wednesday, March 9th. India. The internet blackout imposed in India's West Bengal. The current president, Vladimir Zelensky, who was investigating and charging, would be removed, and the investigations would cease. The 32-nation alliance, White Hats, have mass arrests on their political and global elites who were connected to their corrupted government, owned by the central banking system and deep state cabal. Worldwide disaster event incoming. Trump's office, Chernobyl, has been cut off from their power supply. Cooling of stored fuel rods were at risk, as claimed by the Ukrainian nuclear energy company. Chernobyl could be 48 hours from leaking radiation. Ukraine warns after power is cut off, making it impossible to rule. Russia tells the U.S. we have found your own biological weapons in Ukraine. Evidently last week, the Russian army discovered a significant bioweapons lab in Chernobyl. Very sneaky of them, aren't they? One of 30 bioweapons labs discovered in the Ukraine funded by the deep state Obama CIA. The labs developed viruses to be unleashed on the general public for the deep state depopulation agenda. What has not been made known to the general public, the Russian army rescue from Chernobyl's extensive underground tunnel. An eyewitness, this is a quote, the Russian army in Chernobyl, unbelievable what they found there at the depths. 4 floors underground. We freed all the living children and shot 40 deep state criminals. More deep state members were on the run, including their commander. We'll get them all. When everything is done here, we should probably invade occupied Germany to eliminate all deep state criminals. The German people will be liberated. We're rescuing the victims. So, what you're hearing in the mainstream media news, which, by the way, every single one of those journalist anchors that you're listening to are part citizenship with Israel. And I would imagine they're both CIA and Mossad agents, Mockingbird agents. They're lying to you. They're putting propaganda out to make people hate Russia and want to go to war with Russia. And it's all over. It's all over the news. It's all over TV shows and talk shows. It's propaganda. And people are just lapping it up. People have got to understand they are being brainwashed. They're being told what to think. That's exactly what's happening here. They're being told what to think so that they will support this deep state agenda to go to war with Russia and stop Russia from basically uncovering all of their crimes. Regarding the children. Regarding the children, 0 days, Wednesday, March 9th, according to Bruce. Notification to set appointments for Tier 4B. Release of time, Wednesday, March 9th. Once began, foreign currency exchanges, Zim bond redemption would last at least 6 days. To the Ides of March. Maybe longer, so book your time slots. Thursday, March 10th, the Department of Defense has mandated that the Tier 4B security goods be completed by Thursday, March 10th. According to Bruce, the fiat US dollar and old SWIFT financial system becomes officially defunct Thursday morning, 10th of March at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also on Thursday morning, 10th of March at 1:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, both the restored Treasury notes would become effective. Friday, March 11th, there will be problems with telephones. Russian President Putin has announced that the Russian ruble would be gold-backed. As of Friday, March 11th, on Friday, the petrodollar was expected to taper as the central bank's petrodollar goes down. Interesting to note, March 11th was also the day of the Kazarian-Fukushima nuclear disaster. The U.S. Senate has passed an emergency bill funding the U.S. aid government until Friday, March 11th, thus averting a government shutdown that will occur on Saturday, the 12th of March. On Saturday, March 12th, Russia disconnects from SWIFT, and problems with international dollar settlements will arise and persist. On Sunday, March 13th, the markets, EMs and FX will get the big-time jitters in anticipation for the opening. Gold will learn to dance while silver will take a leap. Cryptos will signal, oh, they're over unexpected Monday, March 14th market crash. Tuesday, March 15th was the Ides of March, when traditionally all debt was to be paid, and it was expected that the general public could exchange foreign currencies at the new gold-backed currency rates beginning Tuesday, the 15th Ides of March. Project Odin. On Friday, March 11th, when Russia disconnected from the SWIFT system, the petrodollar would go down. Unable to recover from events of this past week, by Saturday to Sunday, 12th, 13th of March, the associated worldwide economic problems with oil were bound to appear and shatter the markets for a potential Monday, March 14th crash, just in time for the Ides of March 15th, when traditionally debts were to be settled. They will announce the Queen's death for 3 days plus 10 days of mourning. Everything stops in a Bay of Pigs scenario. To do the QFS transfer, all banks and stock markets across the world will close. They have 3 to 5 days to do the transfer. You will need some cash out at ATMs. EFTPOs, POS machines will go down. They will kill the internet. Putin announced that would happen Friday, March 11th, then announced the Queen's death, followed by the Bay of Pigs, like 3-day weekend war during 10 days of darkness, and emergency broadcast system release. Global currency reset and bombings of 34 satanic buildings globally. Whiplash 347, JFK Jr., taking out Nazi, Zionist, one and the same, and they just don't know. Operation Z, Israel, Whiplash 347, 3-day event, 10 days of darkness. A worldwide blackout was part of the U.S. Space Force trump card. It should be a quick changeover to Tesla Grey Energy. See Texas Tower and Tesla battery installations. Needed power for the emergency broadcast system. 10 days of disclosure, 3 times 8-hour movies, 24/7 for 10 days in many languages. No texts or phone calls, no internet, while Operation Mockingbird being wiped, rebooted, and Project Odin Starlink internet coming online. Just Signal app, highly encrypted military app connected to the military satellite. Download in Play Store. Signal was no longer controlled by the CIA, but the White Hat Military Intelligence, NSA. The Turksat rocket was a military satellite for military comms to TVs and radios for Europe, Africa, and the Middle East and Asia. Get all of your photos off Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc., as they were going away and never returning. The new platforms were controlled by Trump, White Hats, Space Force, etc. Before phones were disabled, all phones worldwide would receive 7 messages from President Trump. Market crash, and then a transfer of wealth.
Let's begin with Trump's war on child sex trafficking. You're going to learn about the amazing uptick in child sex trafficking stings across the United States and around the world since Trump took office. No administration has ever done so much to stop crimes against humanity. Between new laws and executive orders that seize all assets of all criminals, both foreign and domestic, plus additional monies allocated to the fight against child sex trafficking. We strengthened our border and built the wall, which was crucial.
Let me start by saying if I were the majority leader, we'd be on the right supplemental right now. It's been challenging.
If you want to eat healthy and feel your best, you've got to try Kachava. Kachava is the world's healthiest
It's been challenging to get our Democratic colleagues to do what I believe the Ukrainians need at this particular point. But where we've ended up is at $14 billion.
$14 billion, they're sending it to themselves, putting it in their own pockets. Oh, we're going to send that $14 billion to Ukraine. They're not sending it to Ukraine. They're putting it in their own accounts.
NATO allies buy American aircraft.
It's Mitch McConnell. He's one of the biggest traitors.
Which shouldn't have been a problem. The House Democrats tried to cut the OWN the administration's request for security assistance by $300 million. In other words, it's been like pulling teeth to get out of House Democrats what the Ukrainians obviously need at this particular time. And we've been slow, much too slow. But the package, I gather, will be coming over from the House attached to the, I think it's an important step. It needs to be passed, and it needs to be passed quickly.
And then there's an update. Britney Spears' cryptic post has been removed from Instagram, so there's some censorship. They don't want you to know about it. Star singer accompanied her post with 3 seemingly unrelated images: the inside of a cathedral, Israel's state flag, and an image of Australia. Users on social media claim the images are a coded message suggesting the CIA is partly responsible for the abuse Spears suffered as part of its supposedly discontinued MKUltra mind control program. Well, we do know that the Vatican is involved in child trafficking, and so this does appear to be a Catholic cathedral. It is a hub for that, and we do know the CIA is definitely involved. So, and then Israel is also knowing that there's this big underground tunnel from the Vatican to Israel. I mean, it's part of the whole trafficking. It's part of the whole system, this MKUltra system. So I think Britney was probably drawing attention to those things. Those are the 3 major points, you know, as part of the MKUltra mind control program. So, very interesting. And she's just one of many. A lot of these pop stars that you think have it so good, they don't. It's really quite sad. So, in regards to the previous video about Trump and how he really declared war on human trafficking and this kind of treatment of children. And you wonder why the Ukrainian border is more important than our border. That's because our government is being run by the deep state, which is this huge shadow government, the cabal, and they're not working for us. And it's just one more example of that. And the fact that the mainstream media does not talk about this hardly at all, that should tell you everything. And the mainstream media, controlled by Mossad. A lot of them are just double agents with Mossad and CIA. The images are a coded message.
I'm on the clock. What you want? Some wheels?
The abuse Spears suffered as part of its supposedly discontinued MKUltra mind control program. Well, we do know that the Vatican is involved in child trafficking, and so this does appear to be a Catholic cathedral. We do know Australia has these huge MKUltra dumps underneath where they brainwash and traumatize and split personality.
It's coming at you. I'll get back to it then.
It is a hub for that, and we do know the CIA is definitely involved. So, and then Israel is also knowing that there's this big underground tunnel from the Vatican to Israel. I mean, it's part of the whole trafficking. It's part of the whole system, this MKUltra system. So I think Britney was probably drawing attention to those things. Those are the 3 major points, as part of the MKUltra mind control program. So, very interesting, very disgusting and sad. And she's just one of many. A lot of these pop stars that you think have so, in regards to the previous video about Trump and how he really declared war on human trafficking and this kind of treatment of children. And you wonder why Ukrainian border is more important than our border. That's because our government is being run by the deep state, which is this huge shadow government, the cabal, and they're not working for us. And it's just one more example of that. And the fact that the mainstream media does not talk.
Of course, anything to interrupt the message.
Hi, my name is Tami,
Get
and
the
I will...
hell off of my TV.
And the fact that the mainstream media does not talk about this very, hardly at all, that should tell you everything. And the mainstream media, controlled by Mossad. A lot of them are just double agents with Mossad and CIA. Wars and rumors of wars. Iran, Israel. Possibility of direct missile attacks by Iran on Israel in the coming hours. China and Taiwan have reached a secret agreement to work together to reunify Taiwan and China, where Taiwan will keep their armed forces, democracy, and elections. Japan will not get involved in a fake war. Taiwan will help manage China attempts to create a war in China failed. The military government in Myanmar has seized the bank accounts of George Soros, accounts belonging to or affiliated with George Soros, Open Society Foundations, and issued arrest warrants for 11 members of the organization on suspicion of giving financial support to the civil disobedience movement against the military junta. Former Ukrainian Prime Minister claims Putin saved hundreds of thousands of lives. And the Russian Ministry of Defense claims that it has acquired documents belonging to the 4th Rapid Reaction Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine, dated this January, that proved the Zelensky regime was planning an offensive against the Donbass republics this month. This is getting huge play in Russia and a swinging popular sentiment firmly behind Putin. Yes, Putin has saved many lives, especially with those, they use that as a slush fund, and they laundered money through Ukraine with their foreign aid programs, and they're still doing it. You hear all of this. We need to give money to Ukraine. Everybody give money to Ukraine for Ukraine. Ukraine, the regime are Nazis. The regime is part of the deep state. The mainstream media is hiding that from everybody. Everyone's being bamboozled, everyone's being fooled if you're watching the mainstream media, period. Yes. Russia invading Ukraine set off the chain of events to end the Fed by crashing the existing monetary system and switching over to CBDC. U.S. bioweapon labs in Ukraine confirmed Ukraine has biological research facilities, says Undersecretary of State Victoria Nuland, when asked by Senator Rubio if Ukraine has biological or chemical weapons, and says she's concerned Russia may get them. Russian groups are saying they uncovered a plot by Ukrainians to release a biological weapon in the country with NATO's help. Russian general confirms 30 biolabs. He says they have been tracking these since 2014 and has resulted in an uncontrolled increase in sickness. So, Russia has every right to be worried about any bioweapons labs in Ukraine. And for this Undersecretary of State Victoria Nuland to come out, we're so concerned because Russia's going to blame us, because that's what they do. They project everything that they're going to do on us. It sounds, like you're projecting. I mean, that's the deep state, thing that they do. They project.
I only have a minute left. Let me ask you, does Ukraine have chemical or biological weapons?
Ukraine has biological research facilities, which, in fact, we are now quite concerned Russian forces may be seeking to gain control of. So we are working with the Ukrainians on how they can prevent any of those research materials from falling into the hands of Russian forces should they approach.
I'm sure you're aware that the Russian propaganda groups are already putting out there all kinds of information about how they've uncovered a plot by the Ukrainians to release biological weapons in the country and with NATO's coordination. If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
Classic United States government fucking lies.
That projects. It's very confusing. It's pretty clear here that they're trying to hide something. They are desperate to start a war over Ukraine, and they are hiding something. The deep state is hiding
Democrat slush fund.
in Ukraine. I don't know what it is, but
money laundering, child trafficking,
weapons labs, and the things they found underneath the children. I don't know. Expect Russia to declassify server data, evidence on Ukraine bioweapons lab, and nuclear dealings, creating nuclear bombs from sourced Middle East deep state operators. There's plenty of evidence to point to the deep state in Ukraine not, creating these bioweapons and using Ukraine for money laundering, all kinds of crime. I mean, there's lots of evidence. It's out there.
Assume that the materials existing today, the confirmations that were made these days by the Ukrainian side and by the United States of America. There was a statement made by the Deputy Secretary of State, Victoria Nuland, leave no doubt, will not leave an opportunity for Washington to keep silence this time. We remember how many years and also their attempts while spilling blood to find biological and chemical weapons throughout the world, while in fact occupying, killing people. They were looking in the wrong place. We have found instead of you. We have found your own products. We have found your biological material. It was developed primarily for military purposes. As it turns out, it was all happening in Ukraine. What were you doing there? It's a different continent. It has no borders with you. There are no bases of yours.
Just like the lab in Wuhan, funded by the U.S.
There under the guise of scientific research. Your specialist, among others, on a regular basis. Now, considering that we have the evidence that cannot be refuted, we demand that you provide details. The world must know what were you intending to do there, to what end, within which deadline, what was the amount of the so-called investments in the biological activities of Ukraine. The data, materials, documents, please provide them. Enough games.
Ridiculous.
Good afternoon, guys. Well, let's go ahead.